Good day to each one of you. So, welcome back again to our reflections on the Sunday readings. So, we are now in the second Sunday of Easter, or popularly known now as the Divine Mercy Sunday. And it is good to note that this feast day or this solemnity of the Divine Mercy was instituted to us by Saint John Paul II to celebrate the feast of the mercy of God. But in our reflection, I think it is good to remember that this mercy of God is always flow or always flows into the heart of God. And also, it is the heart of the teachings of the church about the mercy of God. Because without God's mercy, we will not exist. Without God's love, we will be nothing. That's why, my dear brothers and sisters, this divine mercy is about the resurrection of Jesus. And now let us see in our readings, especially in our gospel, about the gift or the gifts of the risen Lord, the gifts of the merciful Lord into our lives as Catholics. You know, oftentimes that we interchange our terminology about mercy and about compassion, about forgiveness. But the point is, what is the gift of the mercy of God? What is the gift of the risen Lord to each one of us as Catholics? The Lord give us the mercy. And I told you, the mercy of God is the very core, the identity, the character of God. And the reason Lord is giving us now, it demonstrates to us now that God is a merciful God. He resurrected. He's risen from the dead because he is full of mercy to each one of us. Now, let us go to the gospel of today, in which it opens to us the gifts of the risen Lord. And in this Divine Mercy Sunday, it's good to reflect what are those gifts of the risen Lord. First gift that has been told to us is that the gift of the presence of the Holy Spirit. So the reason Lord would give to us the Holy Spirit. That's why as we continue our journey of Easter, we would see that Jesus would promise unto us the gift and the presence of the Holy Spirit. Jesus would later on would say that I will go to heaven, I will ascend to the Father and your Father, and the Holy Spirit, the advocate, would come over you and will explain to you everything. That's why you see the one of the gifts of the risen Lord is the presence of the Holy Spirit. This is good to remember that this Divine Mercy Sunday, it flows unto us not only the mercy of God, but most especially the Holy Spirit of God in our lives. Remember that we always receive the mercy of God in our lives, especially in our participation on the sacraments. And it's good to know that every sacraments that we have, that we attended, the sacraments that we receive the Holy Spirit. Specifically, when we receive the sacrament of confirmation, say baptism, confirmation, say the Holy Spirit, the Eucharist, and all the sacraments, we receive the Holy Spirit. That's why every time the priest would lay his hands, and to the penitent and to the person, and even to the gift, and even to the sacrament of the Eucharist, and the priest would lays his hand on the gifts, it is a sign of the presence of the Holy Spirit. You still remember when you have received the sacrament of reconciliation, and the priest would lay his hand unto you, and then he prayed the prayer of absolution. It is we receive once again the Holy Spirit. That's why one of the gifts of the risen Lord, one of the gifts of the mercy of God is the presence of the Holy Spirit. This is important that if we receive the Holy Spirit, if we receive the presence of the Holy Spirit in our lives, we can do everything. We become partakers of the mission of Jesus. Okay? And the second one, second gift of the risen Lord is that the gift of faith. We see Thomas, his journey of faith, according to the gospel. Saint Thomas, or maybe the Saint Thomas words would be, or the Saint Thomas belief is that to see is to believe. So without proof, he would not believe. But Jesus said, "You believe because you can see me. Happy are those who have not seen and yet believe." In our lives, there are so many things that we cannot, we have doubts. In our lives, there are so many, we could say, challenges in our lives, and oftentimes we have doubts on it. Our mindset is different from the mindset of God. And the paradigm of God is different from our paradigm. That's why we have doubts. Sometimes we are like Thomas. To see is to believe. We need the proof in order to believe on the particular things. But today, the Lord is teaching us. We want to be part. We want the gifts of the Holy Spirit. We must have faith to the risen Lord. You must have the faith to the mercy of God. Because it is important. It is important. In today's world, the gift of faith, the gift of belief in God, is a basic thing in our lives. So that having faith, meaning we put all our trust to the Lord. That's why if you see at the bottom of the image of the divine mercy, what was written there? Jesus, I trust in you. And the Divine Mercy Feast Day or the Divine Mercy Sunday is teaching us, and also the reason, the one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, the gifts of the risen Lord, is the gift of faith, the gift of trust in Jesus. It demonstrates to us that we need to trust God so that we can have faith. Because without faith, we cannot do nothing. So, my dear brothers and sisters, it is good to know, it is good to remember. As you go along with our journey, we need to have faith. Maybe some of you are lazy to go to the church, but still they go and they participated at the mass. And that is faith. The more you become lazy, the more you participate to the church activities, the more that your body is weak, the more your spirit must be willing to do the spiritual things, and that is faith. Your presence in the Eucharistic celebration, your presence in the church every Sunday, demonstrate to us, or we are demonstrating that we have the faith in God, that we put our trust in God. That's why, see, one of the gifts of the risen Lord and one of the gifts of the mercy of God is not only the presence of the Holy Spirit, is not only, but it's also the gift of faith. And now, what is the third one? The third gift, and I think it is important to each one of us today, the gift of peace. So, one of the gifts of the risen Lord and one of the gifts of the mercy of God is peace. How many times that Jesus said to his disciples, "Peace be with you," and that peace is coming from the risen Lord. We remember that our definition of peace is not the absence of war. But for us Catholics, peace is the presence of God. If the presence of God we have in our lives, we can have peace. That's why Jesus said, do not be afraid. Be courageous enough. Have peace in God, because only in God we can find the true meaning of peace. That's why in the Eucharistic celebration, you're praying for peace. And we exchange the gift of peace to one another. And what we are exchanging one another is not our peace, but the peace of the risen Lord. The one that we exchange the peace of God. So it's good to be reminded once again and again that if we want to have the peace in our lives, we must have the presence of God, peace of God. The peace that we have is God's presence. So, my dear brothers and sisters, this is the second Sunday of Easter, and this is our reflection. And I hope it helps us to realize that as we journey this Easter season, as we journey this Easter, we would realize the importance, the worthiness, the value, and the gifts of the risen Lord, the Divine Mercy Sunday. And the Lord is teaching us not to be afraid, but to put all our trust in God. And we have seen the the gifts of the risen Lord, the gifts as we participate on the mercy of God. And what are those? The presence of the Holy Spirit, having faith, at the same time, having peace in God. So, thank you for listening to our reflection. And I hope you could subscribe and share and invite others to listen to our Sunday simple Sunday reflections. Thank you and God bless you all.